Welcome back to the Crypt Door podcast, where we peel back the veils of the funeral world and talk about what really happens when no one's looking. I am Tony. Thank you all so much for joining me today. This one, this is going to be a good one, guys. This one happened, I think the article that I had found was posted April of this year. And let's get into it. Today's episode, man, this one is rough. It's recent, it's messy, and honestly, it's one of the most disrespectful cases I've seen in a long time. We're talking about the Richardson Mortuary in Houston, Texas, where investigators found bodies decomposing inside a hurricane-damaged building, construction debris everywhere, and families being told lies while paying thousands of dollars. This story shook Houston, and honestly, it should shake the entire industry. Now let's get into it. Picture this: a building still damaged from the last storm, partially rebuilt, tarps, plywood, and behind that is human remains. Not just one or two bodies. Multiple people left there in various stages of decomposition. No refrigeration, no proper storage. Investigators describe the smell as so strong it can be detected from outside the structure. And this is not in the middle of nowhere. This is Houston. Families were trusting this business with their loved ones. Authorities were tipped off after a complaint from a family who paid more than $17,000 for funeral services. They wanted answers because things didn't feel right. Delays, excuses. The Houston Police Department executed a search warrant and discovered what they described as a makeshift mortuary at a construction site. Bodies on stretchers, some wrapped improperly, some not embalmed, and some left for extended periods of time. Police also recovered 89 cents of cremated remains stored improperly. Man, the moment I heard this story, I said, here we go again. A business that charges premium prices, but treats the dead like trash. How does this keep happening? And why do funeral homes think no one will ever find out? If you were a family member, what would be the first red flag for you? Would it be the delays? The smell? The staff attitude? What would tip you off? I would say all the delays and excuses and everything would totally tip me off. The mortuary was co-owned by two individuals. Both were arrested on felony abuse of a corpse charges. One of the owners had faced prior actions related to improper handling of remains. And that right there is a theme in the industry. People get in trouble. They keep operating. They open a new location. Or they change the name. And the cycle repeats. Family after family went public, holding press conferences demanding answers. One woman said she trusted them because her family used that mortuary for generations. Another said she couldn't sleep after learning how her loved one was decomposing in a hot building. Some families didn't even know the mortuary had moved the bodies into the damaged location. Got a question for you guys. In your dealings in life, maybe preparing for a loved one, has a funeral home ever made you feel uncomfortable? Did you ever get weird vibes but went through with it anyway? Let me know in the comment box below. The discovery was horrific. Bodies discovered in a damaged building, heat, no AC, no refrigeration. But the stories behind the bodies? This is where everything gets real. These weren't cases. They were mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. People who deserved respect in their final moments. After the police search, families started getting calls asking them to come in. Imagine that phone call. Imagine getting that one. We need to discuss the condition of your loved one was found in. Multiple families reported learning that. The bodies were stored in triple-digit heat. Some were left for weeks. Some were never embalmed, even though families paid for it. and the mortuary continued collecting payments. Families described feeling physically sick when investigators told them what was found. So this is the thing that started the investigation rolling. A family paid nearly $17,000 for a full-service funeral package. They were told, "Oh, we're just delayed because of paperwork. Oh, we're waiting on permits. Oh, the body had to be transported. We'll call you tomorrow." Every excuse you can think of. Meanwhile, their loved one was sitting in a heat-damaged building, decomposing. They only found out because they pushed and demanded answers. $17,000. You expect professionalism, compassion, dignity. Instead, you get your loved one lying in a building that wasn't safe for the living, let alone the dead. This kind of betrayal, it changes families forever. And this isn't forgetfulness. This isn't, "we were understaffed." This is pure negligence. So you guys, would you go public if this happened to your family? Or would you keep it private? Honest question, because not everyone wants the world to know their trauma. I don't know. Anybody I would say this would ever happen to, they should go public. This stuff does need to be brought to light. The Texas Funeral Service Commission stepped in immediately. They issued a cease and desist order, telling the mortuary to stop all funeral operations. Investigators found a building with broken walls, construction dust and debris around the bodies, coolers that didn't work, improper storage practices, and no logs that matched the number of remains on site. That's a big one. Funeral homes are required by law to track everything. When the body arrived, where it was stored, what was done to it, chain of custody, all of it. But in this case, inconsistent record keeping, which is their polite way of saying a hell of a mess. Police found approximately 89 cremated remains stored improperly, dust-covered, unlabeled, or in random spots. Some families had been told that their loved one had already been scattered or buried. That's a nightmare scenario. You might have someone's ashes on your shelf, and they may not be who you think they are. It's a fear that hits people at a deep emotional level. Cremated remains have to be tracked meticulously. It's literally the last physical part of someone's existence. To treat them like clutter, that's beyond disrespectful. That's cruelty. How would you guys feel if you found out the ashes in your home might not be your loved one? Would you want an investigation? Or would you be too afraid to find out? God, these scenarios, guys, it just plays out over and over again. You know, people having ashes that might not be their loved one. You know, things happening to the body of a loved one that they were charged for and never performed. This is crazy. You know, before I started doing this podcast, I didn't realize and started really doing the whole cemetery thing and the whole thing. I didn't realize how many of these things happen. It's crazy. Families gathered outside the mortuary, some crying, some furious, some stunned. One woman said she had gone to visit her mother's body 3 times. And each time the mortuary told her, not today, because she wasn't ready. Now she knows why. Another family found out their loved one was never embalmed despite paying for it. One man said the hardest part was knowing his father spent his last days in that heat. Oof. When people imagine a funeral home mishandling bodies, they think of wrong ashes, misidentification, maybe delays, but this is the kind of stuff you think only happens in horror movies. And yet, it keeps happening in real life. Do you guys think states should require surprise inspection for funeral homes, or would that be too invasive? Local Houston stations ran it nonstop. Reporters outside the funeral home, crowds gathering, police tape around the back building. Aerial shots showed just how damaged the structure was. One photo showed a gurney near an open wall, like something out of a disaster zone. Comment sections exploded with, "Shut it down! This is why regulations matter. My family used them. I'm terrified now." And the owner's defense here. They claimed, "We didn't do anything wrong. This is being blown out of proportion. We were renovating. Everything was temporary." But investigators made it clear, temporary or not, bodies cannot be stored in unregulated environments. No excuses, no exceptions. I sure as heck don't, but do you guys believe them? Or do you think they knew exactly what they were doing? So we've talked about the discovery, the horror, the families, the arrests. Now let's zoom out. Let's talk about why this keeps happening. Not just in Houston, not just in Colorado, but all over the country. And let's be honest, the funeral industry has some dark corners. Corners people don't want to look at. Corners people assume are regulated, but a lot of them aren't. And why do scandals like Richardson Mortuary keep happening? Lack of oversight. In many states, funeral homes only get inspected when someone complains, when someone dies wrongfully, or when reporters dig around. There are states when funeral homes can go years without anyone stepping foot inside for an inspection. That means bad owners slip through, corners get cut, and families suffer the consequences. Think about it. Restaurants get inspected constantly. Hair salons get inspected. But a place handling your literal remains? Sometimes they get inspected every 2 to 5 years. If that. It doesn't make sense. So guys, should funeral homes be inspected like restaurants with public grades A, B, C, or in the window? How would you feel walking into a funeral home with a C rating? Funerals can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $20,000. Cremations are supposed to be the affordable option, yet mishandling happens most often with cremations. Why? Because some places cut costs. Less refrigeration, less staffing, less training. More profit, less care. It's always the same cycle. Take in more bodies than you can handle. Delay services. Blame paperwork. Hope nobody asks questions. And then the police show up and suddenly, oh, we were renovating. Why do you guys think families don't question funeral homes more? Is it trust? Is it grief? Or do people just assume everything is regulated? Personally, I think people trust, and then they also assume everything is regulated. The trust comes in a lot of times when it's a funeral home that their family has used in the past under different owners or different generations of owners. And I'm sure they all, like I said, they also feel that it's regulated. It's it's the funeral business. Grief makes people trust too easily. When a loved one passes, you're not thinking like a consumer. You're thinking like a grieving human being. You're vulnerable. You just want dignity and closure. Funeral homes know this. Most use that trust responsibly. But the bad ones? They exploit it. If you walked into a car dealership, you'd ask questions. If you bought a house, you'd ask questions. But when someone dies, you just want the pain to stop. You just want things handled. And you don't want to think about logistics. That's why the bad actors thrive. If you lost someone today, how much would you realistically push a funeral home for details? Or would grief or trust take over? How to protect yourself and your family? I guess you ask where the body will be stored. That's a big one. Most families never ask, but you have every right to ask. Is the facility refrigerated? Is the building secure? Are remains kept on site or transported elsewhere? Ask how many bodies they may handle at once. A small funeral home shouldn't be handling 25 bodies at a time. If they are, I would say that's a red flag. Ask for a chain of custody record. Every time the body moves, it should be logged. Times, dates, signatures. If they can't show you, walk out. Check reviews, especially the bad ones. Google reviews, Facebook complaints, Yelp. The negative reviews usually tell the truth. Not always, but I would say fairly often. If something feels off, say something. Trust your gut. A weird smell. A staff member who seems nervous. Delays that don't make sense. Any of that can be a clue. For you guys here, would you ever visit the prep room or storage area if the funeral home allowed it? Or is that too much for you? So what happens to Richardson Mortuary now? Legal charges. The owners are facing multiple felony counts of abuse of a corpse. The charges could come depending on autopsy findings and identification issues. The future of the ashes found. Those 89 cremated remains will likely need DNA analysis, if that's even possible, records, cross-checking, and family outreach. Some may remain identified forever. That's the saddest part of the whole thing. Imagine being one of those families. You get a call saying, "We found remains stored in a damaged building," and your relative might be one of them. That kind of pain doesn't go away. Now, why are we still seeing these scandals in 2025? Technology exists to track remains perfectly. Regulations could be strict. Training could be standardized. But the industry is slow to change. And frankly, a lot of people don't want to talk about death. So things get ignored. As long as people look away, as long as death feels taboo, bad funeral homes will slip through the cracks. That's why these conversations matter. That's why this podcast episode matters. Here's a question for you guys. Do you think funeral homes should be mentioned the same way hospitals are? Monitored the same way hospitals are? Cameras, logs, surprise inspections? Or would that be going too far? This story is a reminder that death care isn't just an industry, it's a responsibility. Families trust funeral homes with the last physical moment of someone's existence. That moment should be handled with respect, honor, dignity, not neglect and shortcuts. When things like this happen, it shakes people's faith in the entire system. But it also wakes people up and makes family ask questions they've never asked before. And that's the good part. The light that comes out of the darkness. My message to you today is simple. Don't be afraid to advocate for your loved ones. Don't be afraid to demand transparency. And don't assume regulation means safety, because as we've seen, that's not always the case. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this heavy episode. And as always, keep your eyes open, keep your questions sharp, and keep walking with me into the places most people are too afraid to look. This is the Crypt Door podcast, and we're just getting started. All right, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Let me know how you feel in the comment box below, and I'll be talking to you another episode really soon. Peace out.